Today, I'm going to give you some of my weird inspirations. A list of people that inspire me in a way that's a bit hard to explain. I've had a lot of inspirations throughout my life, and I've never been very good at holding on to one for the longest period of time. I have too many that inspire me, and I also have a lot that I turn to, and then eventually, maybe sometimes idolize for a period of time, but then eventually sort of let go of. Even if not entirely, like maybe there's something about them I still admire, I don't consume their content as much as I used to. I have turned to some inspirations that I outright regret turning to in the past. Not regret, but just I would never turn to now with my current state of mind. But I like that about myself. I like that both it shows that I am continuously growing and reshaping and adding or changing values. And it also means that I have gotten a wide variety of ideas that have helped make me who I am today. And I hope that I keep doing that. I hope that I keep turning to people, maybe even getting really intrigued by them, being wrong, turning to others, some of them lasting longer than others, and through it all just feeling like I have a very fully rounded pool of ideas to draw from. The reason why I call all of these weird inspirations, like what made these people sort of make the cut, is that none of them would I recommend to just anybody. I guess nobody is for everybody, but I would recommend these to a very particular few people that I know. People that I feel close enough with to sort of explain what I like about them, because not all of these people do I love what they do or who they are all the time. Some of them, I hardly like what they do any of the time. But they all just have some aspect that I really, really admire and that I would really like to embody more of. I think that's a really important thing that we're learning these days, is that you can be inspired by people without necessarily being their biggest fan or idolizing them or thinking that they can absolutely do no wrong. I am not above being biased when I hear that some celebrity that I like has done something very bad. My gut reaction is usually to try to hear the evidence that defends them. At the same time, though, there does come a point where I just need to accept, these people have flaws. They have things that make them inaccessible. They have things that make them outright wrong and against my code of ethics. For however much those code of ethics are worth. I mean, I just have my stupid ideas of what people should and shouldn't do like anybody else. But they are still allowed to inspire me. And I think that's the main reason why I feel compelled to make this video, is to remind myself, and anybody who might be watching, it's okay to be inspired by somebody, even if they're not perfect. First person on the list. I think I'm going to start with the one that I think I connect to the least, which is NBA Youngboy, also known as Youngboy Never Broke Again, who is a rapper of the SoundCloud era, widely criticized SoundCloud era, widely criticized rapper. And the thing about him is that I don't like his music. He has a couple songs here and there that I like. I could kind of bob my head to. Maybe he has a handful more. I haven't dug too deep because the stuff that I hear on the surface, from his most popular stuff, it's just not for me. I'm not saying it's objectively bad. I'm not saying people are bad for liking it. I just don't resonate with it very strongly. I also don't particularly care for his personal life. I mean, again, what is my opinion even worth there? I just want him to be okay. And like a lot of rappers of the SoundCloud era, I think both what made him famous and what could ultimately be, I don't want to say demise, that's a bit dramatic, but what ultimately is a setback in his life are the same thing, is that they live dangerous lifestyles, and I hope the best for him. There are even rappers in the SoundCloud era that I like more than him. Like, I'm not totally just rubbing off all the SoundCloud era rappers. Rubbing off? That might sound like it means something else. What I admire about NBA Youngboy, or Youngboy Never Broke Again, that mouthful of a name, is his work ethic. He has released so much music. Like, so much. He's uploading constantly, and not just uploading songs. He's uploading music videos to these songs. Constantly. I just checked YouTube right before I made this video, and I was completely right. He uploaded like 2 days ago. I predicted he probably uploaded just this week. He did. There are even people in his comments saying, I swear NBA Youngboy just sleeps in the studio. He makes so much music, and I don't like a lot of it. Again, I'll like one here or there. It's kind of impossible not to when you release that much stuff for something to resonate with somebody even who doesn't like you. I think I admire his output. Like, holy. I don't know that I see any musician that releases as much as he does these days. At least not in the mainstream. And the thing is, he's also never had a big radio hit. He's had albums that have gone successful, and he's had some like minor like rap chart hits. Or maybe big rap, you know what I mean? Like, they don't reach very high on the Billboard Hot 100, but they might reach high on the rap charts. But it doesn't matter. He's maintained his relevancy and his career, unlike a lot of others that have faded out, just because he makes so much. And that inspires the crap out of me, because I envy that mindset of just keep making it, just keep making it. Don't view any individual thing that you make as too precious. You just throw it out there, and then you just move on to the next thing. A lot of the time I get such hangover from being able to actually make something that it takes me so long to make the next thing, because I'm so hungover from producing the first one. Yeah, man. I really, really do salute you, NBA Youngboy. And I will be listening to the couple of your songs that I do really like. And I wish you the best. Thanks for doing what you do as much of the time as you do. This is another weird one. I mean, they will all be weird, so I guess I don't need to say that anymore. There's a chess player named Vasily Ivanchuk. And I have wanted to be a chess head for some years in the past. I don't so much try anymore. I like following it every once in a while, like seeing who's doing particularly well on like the global top 100 list. But it's just I couldn't really discipline myself enough to really study chess enough to get good at it, or to be able to follow what makes one chess player particularly brilliant, or why one move was just magical or anything like that. I can't follow it in the same way that I could follow basketball. So that already makes it hard for me to tell people about how much I like him, because I can't specifically explain what about his style. Like, I can't point to specific games or moves most of the time where he did something that I really liked. But from what I've heard about him, is what I'm mostly going to go off, is that he just has this very, very weird, unconventional style. He makes moves sometimes almost deliberately for the purpose of throwing people off and make them wonder, what are you doing? You're doing something that's going to lose you the game. And then in a lot of those situations, no, he's just very, very creative and has this amazing workaround that's still going to get him the win at the end of the day. A reason why he's hard to be an inspiration also is that because he also has a very, very weird personality. I mean, I have a very weird personality. So obviously that's going to resonate with me. But his weird personality has had some setbacks, both it sounds like in his relationship with other chess players. I heard one guy say that, some days he'll treat you like you're his long-lost brother, and then other days he'll, struggle to even look at your face. I relate to that too. And then also, he's never been the world chess champion, even though a lot of people think that he could have been. And they say that part of the reason is that because he does occupy planet Vasily, he just he lets weird emotional turns get in the way in some tournaments that matter the most. So in that way, I mean, it is a bit of a cautionary tale that you can't be a complete maverick all the time. But man, do I just love the idea of you don't do things by the book. He specifically decries doing things based on what the smart computer that can win any chess game will tell you to do. He says a lot of the time what it will tell you as the best move is just not practical for a human to try to do. I love that too. I love the grounding of your chess skills in the actual human experience rather than what the advanced technology says you should do all of the time. Technology's super helpful, but it doesn't replace the value of just trying it on your own, throwing crap at the wall and seeing what sticks. And you keep doing that and you end up finding a lot of success like he has. The next one is TJ Kirk, also known as the Amazing Atheist. You know, he stopped calling himself the Amazing Atheist for a while, just went by his name. And I almost wish that he had stuck with that, but the Amazing Atheist was kind of too much his brand at that point, and his channel was kind of declining. And his channel has declined quite a bit in popularity over the years. It's just part of YouTube cleaning it up, cleaning itself up. I mean, I do think it's partly, you know, people from his past sort of audience like kind of losing interest or moving on. And I will say, I've been watching him for a long time, and his old videos that I first liked him for, I can't watch them as much as I used to. They're super entertaining, and I like going to them sometimes, but he is a pessimist. I mean, his production company is called Pessimist Productions. Him and his friends on the podcast Deep Fat Fried, which is also a really fun show to tune into sometimes when I feel like dabbling in that real cynicism. He's great at putting the smack down on people's stupid ideas. Now, granted, in the past, in doing that, he's espoused his own stupid ideas. But I would find him entertaining even if I disagreed with him. And I still do. What I really love about him these days in his content that isn't as popular, that people probably haven't tuned into in a long time, is that he has lost a lot of the, as he says, he has put aside a lot of the showmanship, and he just turns on the camera and just talks for 30 minutes to an hour or you know, goes on his streams, and he's so entertaining on the spot in a long form. And that's something that I just appreciate more and more these days in the YouTube era of chopping your video up to just the parts where you make the absolute best points, throw out all the bad takes. I mean, you could probably see how that's an inspiration for me as I'm making a half-an-hour video right now. He's so consistently entertaining throughout. He's really gotten himself to a point where he'll just free riff, and it doesn't sound like he's grasping for the next idea. He comes up with some brilliant, hilarious jokes right on the spot. Still, he's such a funny guy. Granted, like I said, funny in a way that isn't always the best for my mental health, and I need to take some grand steps away from sometimes. He has matured a lot over the years, but still, overall, when I tune into his stuff, I can probably guess that I'm not going to feel very happy about the world. Sometimes there's value in being dissatisfied with the world, you know, but it's just something I can't handle all the time. But my goodness, would I love to be as good in the long form as he is. That's honestly a lot of the reason why I'm making half-hour to an hour videos, is that I need to just put in my time of having them be bad and struggling to come up with the next thought and then learning how to pull through it so that in the future I can maybe be as good as he is in that regard. Man, I disagree with a lot of his old videos too. I agree with him a lot of the time, but regardless, I'm always so entertained by him just talking. And I like listening to myself talk too. So it's pretty obvious where I kind of get that inspiration from. Next one is Leo Gura from actualized.org. This is one that if I had been asked about him like 5-6 years ago, he wouldn't have been a weird inspiration. I would have just called him an inspiration. Granted, he's always had kind of a weird talking style and communication style. He's always come across as kind of a weird dude. So I would never have always recommended him to everybody, but I feel like he had a broader appeal before, or wider appeal, because he's a self-help channel. I mean, he wouldn't call himself that. Personal development is a better way to put it. And he used to just make straight personal development videos. And those videos are very, very good and very inspiring if you're willing to get past his kind of weird persona. These days, the content that he makes is greatly influenced by his use of the good old psychoactives, and they're all about picking apart reality, answering big, tough questions that a lot of people tend to overlook. Yeah, I shifted this just a little bit. Big questions a lot of people tend to think don't even need to bother with. They're hard to take sometimes. He has a very manic communication style, and I think a lot of people would listen to him and think this man is so incredibly pretentious, and I wouldn't exactly disagree, and Leo wouldn't argue with you. That's one thing that I do love about him, is that he's not an argumentative guy. He would... Like, I don't know that all these thoughts that he has about consciousness and reality and perception and love and God and all these really big concepts, I don't know that any of it's true. And he would say right up front that just because I said it, that doesn't mean that you know that it's true. And I just love his passion about it. I feel like these are big questions that I admire that he even bothers to make a long video trying to answer. And it does sound like he knows what he's talking about a lot of the time, even if I'm listening to him, and it's maybe it's just so high consciousness that it can't resonate with my lower consciousness brain. But a lot of that stuff will go in one ear, out the other, or it'll be words where I get what he says, but I don't really feel it. But in every one of these hour-long videos, there will be at least a couple ideas that I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Or it'll be like, that is an idea that I have never thought about before, and I still don't think I totally get it, but it gets me started on figuring out another idea afterward. He's just hugely inspirational because these are things, as he says, that we often overlook, and big questions that we don't bother answering all the time, or as often as we could, or that just straight don't interest a lot of people. I always walk away from him wanting to do my own deep existential work, and reminding myself that finding the truth is oftentimes more important than having an answer to the truth that you can communicate to the public in a way that everybody's going to love. Yeah. Just a real interesting guy, even if he can be hard to take in big spoonfuls. Patrice O'Neal. So, I mean, with all these, I've said what doesn't work for me about them, to just call them a straight inspiration. Patrice O'Neal was very misogynistic, self-admittedly. Like, there's no real argument you can make against it when he himself would say, my upcoming stand-up special's got a lot of misogyny in it. He had a way of living that I would not care for, and he died very young from not taking care of himself. That's about the extent of the negative things that I can say about him, because I find him so inspiring. I can't recommend his stand-up comedy to everybody, is all I'm saying. He had a very unconventional conversational style, a lot like TJ Kirk, a very long-form style that he just mastered. But he was so incredibly fearless. He was so authentically himself with every single unpopular idea. that he just threw out there. Oftentimes he'd say an idea and say like, I am fully aware that this is complete crap what I'm saying, and yet I believe it, so what am I going to do about it? These feelings that I have are complete crap, and yet I feel them. So here they are, and I'm saying them. That's so inspirational for me. We all live such corporate lives so much of the time where we don't say 90%, 90+% of what we're thinking. I mean, I've said this before, and then what little you do let out, you soften the edges of. And he just would never, ever do that. To a degree that I'm like, yeah, you seem like a straight-up jerk sometimes, but at least you're an honest jerk. And at least you're a talented and funny and likable jerk at the process. That certainly doesn't hurt. I can listen to him all the time. Some of his, not his dating advice. It can be entertaining, but I can't take that, and I can't take that as much as I can take it just as straight stand-up comedy. And he just has this insight into being a person that often people don't want to say outright because it makes you sound like a bad person. But his point through all of it is like, look, we're all kind of bad people in these ways. Some of us are just willing to be honest about how we are a bad person in that way. Now, being honest about yourself being a bad person doesn't alleviate the responsibility of moving toward being a better person, right? Whatever we're going to call a good or a bad person. It doesn't alleviate the responsibility of personal development. And I think that is one thing that he really lacked. But my goodness. As a person who has put so much weight on the opinions of others and how every single thing that I say or do is perceived throughout my entire life, I would love to be even a small fraction of the level of authenticity and apathetic to how what I'm saying is being received. That level that he had. This last one's cheating. But I think it's one that has a bit more mainstream appeal that I can recommend to most people because there will be something on it. It's a collection of things. Before I give any more prologue, it's Adult Swim. It's Adult Swim. I love Adult Swim. I have been so incredibly inspired by Adult Swim throughout, I'd say since I was about 10 years old was when I started watching it. Adult Swim is the one place on cable TV where I could see consistent, weird, creative, boundary-pushing stuff with people that weren't going to be millionaires off of what they were doing because they just didn't have enough mainstream appeal. But everybody involved was always giving it their absolute 1,000%, and that was always really amazing to see. Also because they were operating on really low budgets, both in production and in marketing, to the point where they could hardly even get 5 people to watch it for some shows that wouldn't last more than a season. But a lot like NBA YoungBoy, they were very much about, okay, let's just try the next thing, let's try the next thing, let's try the next thing, let's not put too much individual weight on anything that we're putting out being a masterpiece. And in doing that, ironically, it produced a lot of masterpieces. Tim and Eric's awesome show, great job. Well, I will not recommend it to most of my friends. It completely predicted the future of internet comedy. And if you can tell me one internet comedian that doesn't at least find them important in some regard, even if they don't personally like them or if it doesn't resonate with them, I would be very, very surprised. Animation. It made animation so awesome and so farther reaching, and again, just so much more boundary pushing. Animation for adults. That could be successful? Whoa! like if the Simpsons was considered edgy and for adults, but I mean a lot of kids watched it also, and I mean it's like if that was boundary pushing for its time, Adult Swim pushed those boundaries even farther. And you know, a whole host of internet animators, some of them working on Adult Swim now, like Psychic Pebbles, you know, they were hugely inspired by that, and it set the tone for what online animation can be sometimes. I love Adult Swim so much. And I fully know that 90+% of those shows I am not going to recommend to even some of my closest friends. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's just a constant reminder that you don't need to be loved by everybody. Because the people that you do touch, you can be an enormous reason for why they even try creating their own thing in the first place. And it just comes from just showing what you got. Thank you, Adult Swim. Thank you. Now, I guess the big takeaways that I want from all this. For one thing, I like how Scooby 1961 said it, but when he was talking about Z's, who was a bodybuilder who died from steroid use. He's a huge role model, but role models do not need to be saints. That's a big thing. Role models do not need to be saints. I almost don't even like that saying because it implies that saints are above people, when how many horrible saints have there been in the past? A lot. A lot. Role models, I think it more means they don't need to prop themselves up to be superior or to be of some high moral caliber. They can still inspire you. And often it is exactly because these inspirations are imperfect that we can relate to them. There are plenty of inspirations. I don't know about inspirations, but there are plenty of artists that I love. I'll give the example of Prince. Prince's music is amazing. There's pretty much no time when I'm not happy that Prince comes on. I love me some Prince. Extremely talented human. Talented in so many different instruments. Amazing singing voice. Great showmanship live. I mean, that Super Bowl is a live performance for the ages. I can't relate to him because I simply do not have the technical proficiency that he has. Or it's harder for me to relate to him for that reason. When people are too outstanding, that can ironically put more distance between them and the people that want to get started on their own thing. Yeah. In the same way, Shakespeare will never be a huge inspiration to me because I don't have nearly his work ethic, and I don't think that I can ever even dream to introduce 1,700 words into the English language. Like, it's just, it works better for me to see people that I could potentially be because I can see their flaws. Yeah. And I think ultimately that's how I'd like to be an inspiration someday if I ever got any kind of audience in this or any of the other creative media that I partake in. I'd like to be seen as somebody who's decidedly imperfect and is very, very forthright with those imperfections. And I mean, to go down the line, I would like to be somebody who produces a lot of stuff and doesn't overthink it before he shows it to people. I would like to be somebody who doesn't do things by the book or how people classically, traditionally say you're supposed to do things. I want to do things that freak people out and make people wonder, like, what is he doing? He's going to fall off, and then save it at the end. I want to be somebody who can go for a long time and be naturally compelling because he's just being himself. I want to make people think in directions that they didn't think before, in a wider scope. I want to be authentic and make sure that I'm always being me, regardless of how people are going to take it. And I just would love to be the reason why somebody else does something.